There we
Got
go. All right. I was just looking at something on my phone. Yeah, there was an accident on 385. So
Oh no.
yeah, so my groceries are gonna be he delayed for another 2 hours. Believe it or
Oh
not.
no.
So I probably just might wait and pick them up tomorrow. Uh, anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is Grace Peterson. For those of you who may not know, I walked with Grace. I met Grace at the Memphis Suicide Prevention Walk, AFSP, and we got together again at the International Survivors of Suicide Day. Um, how did you get involved with AFSP?
I originally got involved because I was a counselor. Well, I am a counselor, and at where I was working, they talked about the Out of Darkness walk, and this was in 2021, I guess. Um, and right before that walk was happening was actually when I lost two of my friends to suicide,
Mhm.
within 2 weeks of each other, and
Wow.
because that happened, and not only just like clients I worked with that struggle, with suicidal thoughts or have lost people to suicide too. I was already thinking of going to the walk, and then I was like, no, I'm definitely going now, to represent these friends. And no one else I knew was going, no one else I knew wanted to go, so I just went by myself. And that was kind of lonely. And then at the end, they were like, if you want to volunteer, go to this table, sign up, talk to this person. And I was like, oh yes, absolutely, like this is what I'm going to do. Because part of my ethics as a counselor is to, volunteer and advocate within the community. So I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do. So then I signed up to volunteer. I went to the orientation, and then it kind of just went on from there.
Okay. Okay. Good. I know. I had a week off from. I work two jobs, so just imagine how straining that is. Not only physically, but mentally as well. But I recently had a week off from both jobs, and I was able to attend one of the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Networks, one of those monthly meetings. That was my very first meeting. I had never been able to go um, because of my insane Monday through Friday work schedule. But we discussed some things coming up, and one of the things we discussed was International Survivors of Suicide Day, which I'll get to in a minute. But one of the things that kind of that sits right at my desk at the end, they had us paint rocks like like um like we did at the Suicide Survivors event. And I'm no good at painting. I'm no good at painting, but I did the best I can. So I was able to paint this 988 rock.
Oh, I love that.
Um I thought I didn't do a good job, but everybody who saw all my rocks said they liked it. And I actually met some pretty good people.
Mhm.
People from Shelby County schools, people from health organizations, counselors. Um, I remember when I was in high school. It was only my third day of high school, and I had got into a real bad bike accident. I was riding on the trail. I was riding at a high speed, medium speed, I guess you could say. I looked down for about 2 seconds, looked back up, and I was headed towards the tree. I slammed on the brake, flipped the bike, and when the bike flipped, I flipped, unfortunately. And lost my two front teeth, broken big toe, gashes everywhere. And the only people who were sympathetic were the teachers, to say the least. The only people who were sympathetic were the teachers. So I sort of knew what was coming. Um, in the back of my mind, I knew what was coming, but also in the back of my mind, I was like, if I tell them what happened, maybe they'll be a little bit more sympathetic, which they were not. They did not. I care. So that started. So that started a real couple of four years of jokes that had I heard every day about my teeth.
Mm.
Just jokes I heard about on my teeth every day. Um, the one that sticks with me to this day is OG, which stood for old grandpa in my
Oh
case.
my gosh. I was like, that's not how I know those letters to mean. Yeah.
They called me old grandpa. I know you were thinking original gangster.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but yeah, OG in my case stood for old grandpa. And I had partials for 14, 15 years. So it wasn't until recently, as 2015, that I actually got my new teeth, that I actually got my permanent teeth put back in. I got my permanent front teeth put back in. Um, I was asked, have you ever considered putting your permanent teeth back in? I said, yeah. So one day we went along and did it, and I've had permanent teeth since 2015. Uh, but those jokes, the bullying, the taunting, that kind of built up anger in me. Um, there was well, it was a similar incident, but in seventh grade, I had my shorts pulled down in front of the whole bus,
Oh my gosh.
and I cried all the way home. And so when I graduated high school, it was just a lot of anger built up, a lot of depression
Mhm.
and anxiety. And one day I just wanted to end it. As a matter of fact, the very first time I thought about suicide, very first time I did it, um, I dreamed that um, I would take a gun, blow my brains out, and my parents would come in and find me. That's what I thought about. That's what I thought about.
Mhm.
And so I was talking to one of the AFSP board members in Nashville, Brenda Williams Imbo. She lost her ex-husband to suicide as well. So I was asking her, a suicide attempt, no matter how strong or how weak it is, a attempt is a attempt.
Mhm.
Do you believe that a attempt is an attempt no matter how weak or how strong it is?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it depends on not if I'm hearing you right, like I don't think it necessarily depends on like the method,
Okay.
that chooses, but more
Yeah.
so like the intention is to end their life. The intention is to end their life.
Yeah.
That's kind of the bottom line. It doesn't matter what the thought is behind, how that comes to be or what that looks like. Um, but the intention behind it, if it comes down to that,
Hmm.
then yeah, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Because
I'm hearing the question right.
we talked about it. No matter how weak or how strong it is, a attempt is a attempt.
Mhm.
Because I recently I kept a blade in my bag. One of those small triangular blades.
Mhm.
So sort of like industrial blades.
Mhm.
Those small triangular industrial blades. Um, I actually found one of those blades, and I was moving some boxes around in the warehouse at work, and I found one of those blades on the floor. And I found one of those blades, and when I saw all the blade, something kind of went in through my chest.
Mhm.
Um, I guess that was a feeling. I guess that kind of seeing that sharp blade kind of triggered me, and I kept it in my bag. And Brenda, I told Brenda about it. She said, "You have to throw that blade away." I
Mhm.
said, "Okay, I will." Then she said, "Not only do I want you to throw the blade away, I want you to send me video evidence of it." She just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So I sent her video evidence. I threw the blade away. But there's not a day that goes by that I'm gonna be honest that some suicidal ideation doesn't cross my mind.
Mm.
Um it does occasionally cross my mind. I know if it stays there for more than a couple of minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, then I probably need to text someone
Mhm.
because I don't want those thoughts to start snowballing.
Yeah.
Um, the International Survivor Suicide Day, that was kind of well, no, it wasn't kind of. It was heavy to say
Mhm.
to say the least.
Mm.
There was joy, there was sadness, tears. Um, all I could do was just sit in the back and just feel the heaviness, but yet at the same time, the togetherness, the love, the warmth of everybody who came out. And it wasn't a big turnout, but it was just pretty awesome to be there. It was just pretty awesome to be there to hear people share their stories. Um, especially Cayman, who lost her dad, so who whooped aside. Um, was there anything going on when you lost your friends to suicide? Did you know about anything going on in their lives?
Can I ask you a question before I answer that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Just 'cause that's my nature to ask questions. Um, well, one, I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that you were there to listen and, be a part of it. And I know you weren't the only person, sitting in that room too, who had also attempted in the past. And it's a different perspective when you're sitting in a room of
Yes,
people
it
who
is.
lost someone and to kind of see like what could have been,
Mhm.
kind of way. And um, thank you for like sharing your story with me just now, because I know we had talked a little bit before, but that's the most in-depth it's been. And
Mhm.
uh, can I ask just like how it feels to tell me that? Like how it feels. I'm sure that's not the first time that you've said it out loud, but I mean,
Yeah.
as the person sitting here with you, the first time hearing that, like,
How does it feel telling you that?
yeah, just like share, just continuing to share as like part of your experience.
Um, you know what? You're a counselor, okay?
I am a counselor, yes.
Sharing it with a counselor really is not a big deal for me. Um, however, I remember I remember one of the counselors I used to see. I did have a little bit of trouble with it, bringing up suicide,
Mhm.
but eventually I hang it up, and I talk about it so much on my YouTube podcast
Mhm.
um, that now um, I don't, I don't, I don't get uncomfortable discussing it.
Yeah.
I don't get uncomfortable discussing that because this is what I talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a huge sports fan, and if you may not know, pro athletes have actually become more active. Um, like my guy, that Dak Prescott, he's the first one that comes to mind.
Mm.
Um, he lost his brother to suicide back in 2020.
Oh, wow.
Um, there's a guy for the Oakland Raiders. His name is Solomon Thomas. Lost his sister to suicide. Um, Actually, someone I went to high school and graduated with. Um, he ended his life by suicide a few years after we graduated.
Mm.
Yeah. So I know it kind of I know it touches you, it touches me. Um, Sometimes it touches us heavier. Um, Especially if you are dealing with a loss.
Mm.
So you were a survivor of suicide as well. What you just told me. Yeah, yeah, you were a survivor of suicide. Yeah,
Yeah. One, being a survivor of suicide loss, I think, is a piece of like getting back to your question too. And that's why I kind of asked you, like, how's it feel to talk about it? Because I know this is something that, you've kind of built a platform on and, that you share about. And I think that's such a big deal because getting back to your question about my friends, both of these two, they were young men, they were my age, and both of them I had known for a long time. I had kind of, lost touch over the years and things like that, and kind of just became more of, an acquaintance as time went on, as most people who you went to middle school and high school with kind of, naturally happens.
yeah,
But still people I thought about, still people that I cared for. They were both in the same kind of, I mean, they knew each other as well.
yeah,
Um, and one of them in particular, I think of probably most often because even though I was kind of removed, from his life at that point, just from lack of being in the same place and, how people drift apart and things like that, but
yeah,
he was still very close with a lot of people I knew. And um, from what I understood, like there weren't a lot of signs, even the day that that happened, he was with like his friends and his family just a few hours,
yeah,
before he decided to end his life.
yeah,
And then same with the other person who, experienced that. I think there were some warning signs with him from what I understood from other friends that we had in common who I kind of talked to after the fact. But I think from what I understand, and this is just, my perspective, I don't think people really understood what he was maybe going through or knew how to address it in a way that would be helpful. Not that they did anything wrong, not that they
yeah.
didn't love and try to support him. I just don't think they really knew how to address it or what to say. And I think that's why talking about it is such an important thing so that more people can kind of learn, like, how do I help this person if someone comes to me with
Absolutely.
this concern?
Um, I was about to say two things. I saw a video on the YouTube. It was one of those TEDx talk videos,
Mhm.
and the topic was casually suicidal.
Mm.
It was this late Haiti who was in college at the time. Um, she was talking about the fact that suicide was actually something that people were joking about,
Mm. Mhm.
and something that people didn't understand. Like one of the things she read off, um, she said, "I am prepared to die, like a pear,
Mhm.
like a pear. I want to commit suicide." Um, I think she read another one where it said, "I would just like to die for a day to see um who would really who would really care for me."
Yeah.
And one of the other points that she made was I know lost it. Oh yeah, came back to me. Um, she was talking about how discomfort drove her and her best friend apart. Okay,
Mhm.
and she was talking about the time that she had a anxiety attack, and she drove herself to the hospital. And she said, "Don't drive yourself to the hospital during a anxiety attack." So she got back to her dorm room with her best friend, told her about her experience with anxiety, and can't quite remember what she said next, but I remember this next part vividly. She said, her best friend said, "Sarah, you know what I always think about people who want to end their lives by suicide. They are weak, and we are better off without them." I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Ooh."
Yeah.
Like, and she said, "I don't," and she said, went on to say, "I don't talk to my best friend anymore." So
Yeah.
yeah, so what you just said, talking about it, discomfort can drive people apart.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I was actually afraid to tell my ex girl. I was actually afraid to tell my girlfriend about it. Um, I forgot that she struggled with anxiety as well. That he struggled with anxiety as well. And so this is where we are talking about stigma. Um,
Mhm.
stigma kind of prevented me from telling her that. Um, the first time I told her, first time I told her, she just kind of shook,
Mhm.
like, whoa, like, whoa, you were considering doing that. Um, there's still stigma going around. Would you do you agree with that? Because I think it's still going around.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, I think sometimes my view can be skewed a little bit because within the communities I operate in, like counseling, volunteering, all those people, it is talked about and it is something that's, shared. And, but I mean, I've had so many clients that have struggled with it too, that are like, how are you gonna, I mean, they will literally ask me like how I'm gonna react to something
Uh,
before I tell them, because
oh yeah, yeah.
so often it's like, well, when I tell this to someone, it immediately goes into like overdrive of, okay, let's get this person to the hospital and let's get them,
Mhm,
put in a ward for 72 hours and things like that. And a lot of times that just makes them feel not heard. And it
mm,
doesn't necessarily fix what's going on. It just kind of puts them in like a babysitting type scenario, which sometimes is necessary and is what people need given what's going on. But I think even that fear of, well, what happens when I tell someone this, or how are they going to react, or you know is this going to be taken seriously? I can't tell you how many clients who as adults they're now telling stories about how, well, when I was 12, I shared this with someone, how I was feeling, and they just told me I was wrong for
mhm,
feeling that way.
mhm,
And the fact that they're still alive and like made it through that time without any support
mhm,
is a big deal. And so I think not only is it kind of frightened to talk about because of the consequences of those
mhm,
discussions sometimes for people. Um, but then, yeah, also just in certain communities, like it's just not a conversation that's had, or there's not enough education on it for people to know how to
mhm,
respond. And I mean, even thinking of you, like sitting here talking to me, I'm like, you're an adult Black man. Like,
mhm.
I'm assuming that this is something, and this is an assumption. So if I'm wrong, like, please tell me.
Right.
But I'm assuming it was probably something that like was not talked about very often.
You're right. You're right.
You.
Yeah,
And,
you're right. You're right.
not to
It's,
like put a
it's
bias
still
out there, but
no, no,
yeah.
it's still no, it's still not really talked about amongst the Black community. Yeah,
I mean, there was even a woman at the International Survivors Day that spoke about how in her community,
I
she
remember her. Yeah,
one.
I
And
remember her.
And that she's been sitting alone with this for 2 years because no one in her family and her Black community was like open to having those conversations about her grief. And
Uh-huh.
I'm just sitting thinking about that, like, okay, this person has lost their child to suicide. That child felt isolated. Now the mother is becoming isolated in
Yeah.
her community because of her loss, and
Yeah.
I think that's why so often it's like a trickle effect a
Yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah. Um, um, I lost my train.
That's okay.
I lost my train. Thought. Okay, so we were talking about stigma. Um, I can tell you, I can tell you um, the number of people who called into the number of people who called into the crisis center, who called in and say they're afraid that if they tell us what their suicidal feelings are, that somebody will come and get them.
Yeah.
And no, that's not how. No, we're there to listen, just there to um what's it called, empathetic is the
Mhm.
right word, empathetic.
Empathize. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, empathetic listening,
Mhm.
um care of just having a caring voice.
Yeah.
um yeah, so there's a stigma that goes around that well, what if I tell my mom this? Is she gonna send me to Lakeside? Are they
Mhm.
gonna send me to the ward? Are they gonna send me to this? Are they gonna send me to that? Are they gonna da, 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 da? um I think this needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
um I think it's still under discussed despite the progress we've made. I think it's still a pretty much under the discussed topic, not
Yeah.
only in the Black community, but worldwide. I
Yeah.
think. I think.
I
Yeah.
think so too. I mean, and just to like go off what you just said, I have so many clients that I've worked with that it's like, I don't want to call those numbers because what are they going to do? How are they going to respond? What are they going to say?
Yeah.
And even just trying to explain that to them,
Yeah.
it's still like they don't really want to reach out to that
Mm.
support because there's that fear just attached to it.
Yeah.
And um like with the people who who like have lost people I know, my loss is there too. And
Mm.
um one of the things I just think about a lot, and that's why I think these conversations are so important, is like what would have happened if they felt like that day or that moment
Mhm.
they called someone, or they could have stepped out of whatever room
Mhm.
they were in and like gone to somebody, um because even though I haven't struggled with that myself,
Mhm.
with people I've talked to in it, I know that and maybe this is something you can relate to too, like
Yeah.
just the loneliness and the hopelessness and the helplessness is so overwhelming. And the loneliness is the part that really gets me because it's like people are sitting with those things in the moment by themselves. And
Mhm. Mhm.
that's the piece that I relate to the most, I think, just because of what I do. I just want people to not feel alone most of
Mhm.
the time.
I would say the reason why I wanted to end my life by suicide is because um I kind of felt, well, when you want to end your life by suicide, you don't kind of feel, you
Right.
fully feel pressure of I know after I graduated high school, um I felt pressured to just follow right behind my oldest brother. Hold on, closest thing, yeah, right here. There we go. Um, I felt pressure to follow my oldest brother right out the house at age 18.
Mhm.
And then me and my dad had a conversation about getting out of the house. So that conversation right there led me to say, what is the quickest way for me to get out of the house?
Mm.
Bam, suicide. And that was where this is kind of a transition into the topic I'm about to discuss now. Suicide and lethal means, such as pills, drinking, guns. This is actually a topic I'm going to do later on this week. I was looking at some stats yesterday, and it said males make up nearly 80% of suicides.
Mm.
Um, and men are actually at a higher risk of suicide in the US.
Mm.
Um, I don't know who else is talking about all this, but I think it is really okay for men to say that they are not okay, because some days I am not. I am in a. I'm not in a okay place,
Mm.
mentally at least. Yeah.
Mm.
So suicide makes up every three. Suicide makes up every 3 in 5 gun deaths.
Wow.
Um, and I think I saw a stat where I think it was like 86% of male suicides are like gun related. Yeah.
Mm.
If I remember that stat correctly, and I was reading a few stories. There was a woman named Emily Frazier. Her husband Ryan Frazier, he ended his life by suicide. They married right out of high school. Um, and he had a couple of incidents with a priest. He was sexually molested by a priest, and he filed a lawsuit in 2008, 2007, 2007 to 2008. The priest did get convicted, but he served only 30 days. Okay, he served only 30 days, and when he ended his life, she was pregnant with their second child, and he took his own life with a semi-automatic in 2008. So, so it was like, so, um, so you will probably notice women are twice as likely to attempt, but I say most of the completed suicides are by male.
Mhm.
So, do you have anything to say for the about the about the uh about the woman perspective of a suicide?
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm familiar with those statistics for the most part, and especially that men statistically are more likely to complete suicide. Women are generally more likely to attempt without completion.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes that can be by the means, like we were kind of talking about earlier. And um, I think, I mean, obviously every person's different. I don't want to generalize too much. But I think if we're just looking at it from, a societal standpoint, for the most part, women are kind of taught more, relate more to talk about, how they're feeling, especially with their friends. Like, I think
Hmm.
about how men relate to their friends versus how women relate to their friends, and it's very different a lot of the time, at least from my perspective and what I know and what I've heard from, people I talk with, where a lot of the male clients I've worked with, like, don't really have anyone in their life, or if they do, then a lot of these topics like suicide are ones that they don't really touch. And it's really interesting to kind of be that person that a lot of people have those conversations with for the first time and talk about those things. And I do think there's pressure. It's a good word, like you used earlier. It made me even think about men who have, like families and who have to, feel the pressure to take care of them and the responsibilities and all that. And I remember a while ago, I worked with a client who was having suicidal thoughts, and part of us recognizing how intense those were for him, well, he was like, well, I wonder how much my life insurance would give my family. I wonder if that would provide more than I'm able to provide while I'm alive.
Mm,
And so even those types of thoughts,
yeah.
Shows kind of the pressure
Yeah.
felt in a different way. And I think a big piece of it is how we kind of acknowledge these things as a societal whole, and the way that we,
Mhm.
kind of explain how to talk about difficult things
Mhm.
between men and women. It is very different.
Yeah.
And again, not every person, who identifies as woman or who identifies as man would probably agree with that. It, depends on the community you're raised in. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think we could, if you're from this area, which I'm not sure if you are, but I think we could definitely say,
Memphis, yes.
yeah,
Memphis.
Memphis, me too. So I think we could definitely even say living in like the community of the South, like that's a big part of it. You probably have heard this just as I have, as many other people have had, like pull your own self up by your bootstraps. Don't reach out for help, figure it out.
I
Which is
think
like
that's
the
what we are
worst.
taught as men. Not,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Which is like one of the worst things that people latch onto, because then it just leaves you alone. You don't have the ability to ask for that help. And if you don't ask for that help, if you're having suicidal thoughts, then you're more likely to progress toward those thoughts.
I was thinking about this just the other day. Um, when it was around the time where I was 21 and I was still young. I was still young. And this is where stigma comes back into play. Um, I had been trying to fight my high depression. I've been trying to beat my high depression for since I graduated high school. So 19, 20, 20, 21, I've been trying to beat it for about 3 years. It didn't happen, to say hey the least.
Mhm.
And the harder I tried to fight it, the worse it got. And I made that decision by myself to see a counselor um because I just wasn't getting because I had no who or friends around 21. I had no friends, no friends around 20, around age 21. And so I decided to get help on my own. And I decided to keep it a secret from my family that I was seeing a counselor. Um, we got about 1 minute left. Um, for men and women who are seeking help, what would you say?
Yeah. Um, I would say if you think you're in a position where you need some more support and you don't have it, reach for it, because it is there, and it might take time to find, but
Yeah.
just to know that it exists and that there are people who will, listen to what you have to say and will help you get the kind of support that you need, even if that's just someone to listen.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be much more than that sometimes for people.
Okay. All right. So one more thing. At the TSPN meeting, they also gave us these 988 rocks and the 9001. So I've been trying to promote this on my video on my YouTube channel every day.
Yeah.
Let me see. I hope I don't run out of time here.
You're
but
cutting it close.